Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to the Liz Live, formerly Liz Live, now the Rebellious Counselor Show. The Rebellious Counselor Live. It sounds kind of strange. It sounds kind of different. Everyone's used to Liz Live. So I want to talk about what all this means. What is the Rebellious Counselor? I had to wear my, rock and roll leather jacket tonight to just emphasize the rebelliousness, because when we think of rebels, we think of leather and rock and roll and big silver jewelry and cigarettes and breaking rules and breaking laws. And, I certainly, in my rebellion as a therapist, as a counselor, am not suggesting anything like that. But I'm going to explain a little bit about how I came to this rebranding and this identity, and I think people who know me probably get it right away because I do have a very rebellious nature, and I keep it pretty quiet, and I keep it to myself. But if you've been in therapy with me, you would definitely understand where the Rebellious Counselor comes from. But those of you who might be watching for the first time or don't really know me are probably completely confused, bewildered. What does all this mean? Who is the Rebellious Counselor? And that would be me. And what does that mean? And that is the topic of tonight's show. So before we get into it, I want to thank everybody for the birthday love that I got. My birthday was Monday and December 6th, and I turned 46, which I cannot believe how old I am, but I am 46, and proud of 46. It's fun. I love my 40s. So anyone who's not in your 40s yet, wait till you get there. It's really great. Love my 40s, and thank you. I got so much birthday love on Facebook. It was really sweet, and it was actually very moving, and I felt very loved on my birthday. So thank you guys for that. Really, really appreciate it. And it is officially the holiday season. So we passed Thanksgiving, and now we have Christmas and New Year's coming up, and we know that sometimes the holiday season can be really tough for people for different reasons. Sometimes people feel kind of alone during the holidays, or they're thinking of their lost loved ones, the loved ones who are not able to be with them. A lot of people lost people for the first time, and, this might be your first holiday season without them. And so if you need to reach out, I am, always available. I'm not always available, but I'm available to, as many people as I can be. If, you want to start a session, you can always call, and I'll try and get you in as soon as possible. And so let's talk about this Rebellious Counselor business and figure out what this is about. So the first the way I want to kind of introduce this to all of you is when you are a therapist, when you go to graduate school and you get your degree, just like in many other professions, there are a lot of there's a lot of ethics and boundaries that you are taught for licensure, and you're taught in classes, and you're taught a lot about boundaries when you're a therapist. And I think that's probably because we get into such close relationships with our clients that sometimes it can be confusing. Are they our clients? Are they our friends? Are they our family? And, most professors and most training really encourages students, young therapists, to really, keep it very, keep the boundaries very rigid, and, don't talk about politics, don't talk about religion, don't hang out with your clients, don't laugh with your clients, don't tell your clients what to do, just basically, sit there and listen and, nod your head and ask questions. And, that never sat well with me when I was in school. I never really agreed with that, but I figured, I'm in school, I'm in grad school, I'm going to do what I have to do to get my license, to get my degrees and pass all the tests and all of that stuff. And I loved it. I loved graduate school, actually, but I didn't necessarily agree with everything that I was taught and everything that I was told to do. And anyone who knows me probably for any amount of time knows that that is not uncommon for me, that I, very often question everything that people tell me. And I've been questioning people in authority probably since I was a little girl, and probably part of why I was so difficult to raise. My poor mom, she had to deal with my sometimes very sassy mouth. And, and I see couples come in with young teenage girls that remind me a lot of myself, very, think we know it all, but have a very rebellious type of nature. And when I say rebellious, I don't mean, breaking the law. I wasn't out breaking the law, and I wasn't, doing too crazy things. I mean, I certainly had my party days that were fun, but those are long behind me. But I definitely am not somebody who likes to just follow the rules or just agree with what everybody's saying or what everybody's thinking, because I find that, generally speaking, the masses, no matter what area we're talking about, whether we're talking about politics or we're talking about just general things that happen in the public eye, in the media, things that we're taught in school, I don't think we should all just be nodding our heads and accepting everything that is true. And I think real education in real life and real learning is to question everything that you hear, question everything that everybody tells you, and don't just accept that just because a professor or, a teacher or a parent or somebody tells you something, that it's necessarily the truth and that it's necessarily correct. And it's very important to learn how to develop your own mind and your own way of thinking. And this was definitely something that was very much encouraged in my family, that, everyone in my family is, I would say, pretty intelligent for the most part, and, always questioned or looked behind what is. And so I was surrounded by adults that I saw doing that, parents that I saw doing that, siblings and cousins and aunts and uncles and grandparents that I saw not just agreeing with, the dominant stories, the party lines, and having to fit in. And I never really wanted to fit in to any box. I don't want to fit into any group. I don't want to have to follow every single rule. It's not me. It's not who I am. So when I first started to do my Liz Live show, oh God, everyone had an opinion. What I should talk about, what I shouldn't talk about, how I should appear, everything that, everyone had an opinion, and some of the opinions weren't very nice, but you're constantly, when you put yourself out into the public a little bit, you're always going to get a lot of feedback, whether you want it or not. People are going to, be pulling you in many different directions and tell you how to do things. And it can be very scary when you're first putting yourself out there, because you really don't know what to expect, and you don't know how you're going to be received, and you really don't know what to talk about or what not to talk about, because you want to be true to yourself, but you also want to be, politically correct and, all of those things without, you don't want to offend. I don't want to offend anybody. But through the last journey of the last year or two, I've become more and more comfortable just being me. And being just Elizabeth is, and also being in the role of therapist, are, two separate things, but yet they're not, because even though I'm a therapist, that's my professional identity, and that's very much a part of my personality and my soul of who I am is a helper. I don't fit into the therapist box. And the therapist box that is out there, or the counselor box or the psychologist box, is, that we are supposed to be, very analytical and very, put our glasses on and, take notes and diagnose people and, nod our heads and just be pretty aloof and not react, non-reactive, not emotional. And to me, all of that equals fakeness and phoniness, and it just never felt right to me. So I guess I kind of tried it a little bit in the beginning, because that's what I, thought I was supposed to do when I, first was a, therapist out there, but it never felt right. And even when I was in all my training and all the different internships and practicum and everything that I did, I always felt very pushed by my supervisors in one way or the other, my mentors in one way or the other, which was good for me because it helped me realize some things that I like and some things that I don't like, but it never really spoke to me. And I knew deep inside that I had a certain style of therapy and I had a certain way of doing therapy that was just true to myself. And whether people liked it or they didn't like it didn't really matter to me. And as you mature in your profession and you go through a lot of aches and pains, you realize that you're not going to please everybody. You're not necessarily going to be the right therapist for everybody. You might not be the right fit, but if you're genuine and you're authentic and you're true to yourself, you're always going to do better because you're mentally and psychologically and emotionally and spiritually free. And so it's probably taken me 46 years to get to this place that I am, that I'm just loving. And I decided that in order for me to not be like every other therapist, which are so boring, even today I went to look at some therapists around the town for a friend of mine because, I can't be her therapist because she's a friend. And so I was trying to help her out. And, every description was the same. It was, some fake phony picture or headshot, like a dating site. And, are you full of anxiety and depression? Call me. I'll, light your way and I'll lead. They all were exactly the same. And I just thought, I never want to be that. I never, ever want to be that. I never want to do things like everybody else. And because that wouldn't be my true nature. Wouldn't be my true nature. So as I was working with a very brilliant advisor in my life who worked in publicity, and I hope she's watching, but I don't know if she is, who worked in publicity for like 20 years. She's been helping me with my business and sort of coming up with some new branding ideas. And it was really her that came up with the idea. Well, how about, you're so like authentic. But it's like, if I say I'm an authentic counselor or an authentic therapist, that just sounds like a sales pitch. It doesn't sound like anything that interesting. And you're not going to say caring therapist, or that's sort of rhetorical. And so we started talking and, we came to the conclusion that rebellious might be a good descriptor for me because, well, no, I'm not out breaking the law rebel, that kind of rebel. In my field, I could be potentially seen, especially by other therapists, as being rebellious. Just the fact that I speak online and I speak of my own experiences in a way is rebellious, right? Because therapists are encouraged to have these very rigid boundaries and, never speak about yourself. And, I had a supervisor once. I don't even know if she had kids, if she was married. I literally knew nothing about her, where she lived, nothing. And I saw her for like a year when I was getting a licensure in Pennsylvania. The boundaries were just and that wasn't bad. That was just her style. And I'm sure it works great for her and for her clients, but it didn't feel warm and it didn't feel cozy for me. And so I want people to feel when they come to therapy with me like they're hanging out with a friend. And, again, even that in itself is rebellious because, the idea, the way we're trained and what we're taught is that therapists are not supposed to be friends with their clients. You can't have dual relationships and you can't self-disclose and you can't do this and you can't do that. Blah, blah, blah. And as time goes on, it is definitely, my field is changing and it's evolving and it's moving forward. But I guarantee you there's probably a lot of therapists, especially the ones that are, probably older, who might be, looking at this and like, this is crazy. It's crazy to have a rebellious counselor and, blah, blah, blah. But I don't really care because I have to be true to myself. And that's what I try and teach my clients and help them have the strength to be who they are and always in alignment with themselves and with what they believe feels right for them instead of worrying about everybody else. And so I think that definitely in my field would qualify, maybe sadly so, as rebellious. And I think also when you think of rebellious or you think of a rebel, you think of somebody who is not afraid to be different, who's not afraid to speak up, and is not afraid to lead, and is not afraid to do things outside the box. And I would say that those things would definitely be me. And again, for better, for worse. Some people might love it, some people might hate it. And at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter, because if somebody doesn't like my style of therapy, they don't have to come to me. I mean, there's, thousands of therapists out there, so if this doesn't feel good for you, no hard feelings, there's plenty of other ones out there. So in discovering this about myself and discovering this, being on this journey the past few years of having the Liz Live show, now the Rebellious Therapist, I had to really dig deep and figure out, okay, what does that even mean, and who am I, and what is my therapy, and why is it special, and why is it different than what you could get from any other therapist? Because like I said, there's plenty of them out there, right? It's like dating sites now. You can go on to Psychology Today, you can go on to Google, anything, and they're just lists and lists and lists. So what's a rebellious therapist look like? So if you're watching, you have some idea of how my work is different, and whether or not that might be something that you or somebody you know would like, or maybe that you think is terrible, or maybe that you think you might want to try, or maybe if you're looking and you're flirting with the idea of going to therapy, you might have a better sense of what it is you're looking for when you go into a therapist's office or you meet, to know if this is something that fits for you, and to not be afraid that if you go to a therapy session and you don't like it, you don't have to go back. You don't need to be pressured by a therapist of, oh, can I get you on the schedule next week? No, thank you, or, I'll get back to you. And you don't have to go back. Or you can frankly say to a therapist, you know what, I don't think this is a good fit for me, which probably most people wouldn't do. But, therapists, we understand that. We really do. So some of the things I want to highlight, okay, so breaking boundaries is kind of what I'm talking about. So these boundaries, these rigid boundaries that therapists are supposed to be in, don't ever, God forbid, say anything about you or your personal life or anything you've ever been through or blah, 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 and I so totally disagree with that. Part of what makes therapists effective and real is not the education that we have, but the life experiences and the education. The education is obviously very important. The training is very important. But if you don't have any life experience, you're not going to be a very good therapist. So many of us therapists, though not all, many of us have been through a lot in our lives, and we have that to share. And so why wouldn't we? And I think one of the reasons we're encouraged not to share is one really good reason and one really bad reason. One really good reason is because if we do share about our own lives, which is called self-disclosure, if we do that, then we're supposed to be, it might make other people feel like, oh, we're, forcing people to listen to our crap, and it's not about us, it's about them. And this I actually do agree with. So when we do self-disclose, we do discuss things that have happened in our lives, I agree that it shouldn't be for our benefit as therapists, it should be for the client's benefit. So, for example, something I talk about on the show a lot, something that I talk in therapy a lot about is, having lost both my parents at a very young age, 11 and 36. So when I have people my age or clients of any age really come in for a death of a parent, I always share that because I know what it's like. So why would I keep that from somebody? And a lot of times, if you've ever been grieving, you think you're not going to make it. You're in so much pain, you think that you're never going to make it through this time. So when you see people in front of you who have been through the same thing and they've made it and they're functioning, it gives you hope and it gives you inspiration that, okay, wow, maybe if Elizabeth survived that, maybe I can too. And so many of my clients and so much feedback that I've gotten from my clients is that they really like that I'm willing to do that. And I think that's something that is definitely very rebellious and very different about me. But I don't do it to dump my personal things on somebody. And granted, if you go in to see a therapist and she starts telling you about her personal problems and doesn't give you therapy, okay, that's really bad. That's definitely not a good situation. But if he or she is sharing with you to let you know, like, hey, I've been through this too, and here's you will survive, and here's what I did, or I understand how you're feeling. I mean, it really does make people feel better. And I've had, pretty much 100% positive feedback on that. And that is something that most therapists are not willing to do, or they don't really know how to do it in the right way, or, they're very afraid of being vulnerable to their clients. And I think that there are certain clients that I won't do that with for certain reasons, but the majority of my clients, I will. So if I think a client is really, unstable mentally, no, I'm not going to get into anything about myself because, I've been stalked and all kinds of craziness from clients. And, you don't really want them to know your address or where you live or things like that. So you have to be careful as a therapist to protect yourself. But at the same time, it's okay to share a little bit. The second thing that I thought was kind of different and kind of rebellious about my therapy style is that I document so much of my therapeutic experiences with clients in the Liz Live show. So, which is now the Rebellious Counselor, right? So I see clients all week, and I'm constantly being challenged in my work every day to grow, to learn, to be there with my clients, to get through whatever my clients are going through with them. And by doing that, the last, 12, 13 years, whatever it's been, you learn a lot. And you go through a lot of interesting interpersonal growth and a lot of interesting experiences. And why keep that to yourself? Why would you do that, right? You want to share the knowledge and share the experiences that can help other people grow. So not saying that it's always going to be personalized about me or my clients in particular. I don't break confidentiality or anything like that. But if we are going through personal growth experiences and we're learning and we're growing and we're changing, why wouldn't we want to share that with other people? That's a gift, and a gift to be shared. So you will see in the Rebellious Counselor live show twice a week, and also in my therapy, that you're going to hear a lot of ideas that aren't necessarily mine. They might be things I've learned from my clients, or things that, some new experiments, or not scientific experiments, but new things that, I've tried with my clients that really work. And I'll say, okay, guys, I've done this on a bunch of people. It's really working so well. Let's all get together and do it, And so that's something that's very unique and very, very, really rebellious. To even have the show is like so, it shouldn't be, but it's so outside of the box for therapists. If you look at like therapists online, not saying that there are some that are good, but, they're, in their coat and tie, and they're very, professional, and they're speaking very boring into the camera. These are the 10 ways to, grieve your parent. And these are the 15 ways to know you're dating a narcissist. And these are the 10 things you need to do to get out of your depression. And these are 3 things you can do to meet the person of your dreams, right? It's all a bunch of garbage at the end of the day. I'm not saying there's not good information out there, but it's not authentic, real, raw life experience that can be life-changing. Maybe that's the way to put it. And it's certainly not rebellious. It's more, it's in the box. It's what to be expected. It's what to be expected. It's like when you look up a lawyer, every lawyer has, the scales of justice on their website. There's nothing creative. There's nothing different. So if you went to see a lawyer and they had, their own podcast and they were doing different things, you might be like, wow, that's pretty cool. This guy seems a little more open, a little more like someone who maybe I could trust a little more, or maybe not. Okay, I implement a lot of different approaches, right? So my training is mostly postmodern thinking, which basically all that means is we don't believe that a problem exists within you. Postmodernists, we believe that problems are created by multiple different things at once. So, if you went to an old school, psychoanalysis session, it would be completely different than what you would get with myself or really any postmodern therapist. So, and a traditional psychotherapist, is going to ask you about your mother and your father for like 20 sessions and all these stories about your childhood and la la la. And that can also be very important in the growth process and the therapeutic process. But if you're coming into therapy because you're having panic attacks or your marriage is about to end, or your child got arrested, or whatever, your spouse is snorting drugs or whatever it is, you need that problem to be addressed immediately. You don't want to go through 5 or 6 sessions talking about your family history and what happened when you were 4 and stacks of paperwork this thick in order to get some advice or some feedback on what you're going through. And you don't really want someone to just sit there and say, okay, so yes, that must be very difficult for you. And how does that make you feel? Right? Nobody, it's like the worst therapy in the world. And who wants that? But that's what you're going to get from a lot of people. So I think that even if you never walk into my office or you never step into my space or you never watch another show again, I think learning about the Rebellious Counselor is going to help anybody who's interested in really good therapy and people someone who's looking for a true, authentic connection with a person who actually cares about them and doesn't see them as, another number on the insurance ticket or, whatever. Okay. So what else? I swear a lot. And I know if any of my clients are watching this, they're probably laughing because, it's real. It's real. People swear. I swear. I'm not going to swear on the show. I probably do sometimes because, Facebook can shut me down. But, it's okay to swear. I mean, it's an expression of emotion, and everybody does it. So why do we pretend like, we're going to go into this very proper setting, and when we're already upset and we're already anxious, then we have to go into a setting where we're going to be made to feel more anxious because we can't be ourselves, or because some stranger is just going to sit there in silence and stare at us when we're in dire need of help? How is that therapeutic? But yet, believe me, it probably happens in, 80% of therapy offices. Hi, and what brings you here today? That kind of stuff. And, I don't like that. And that makes me rebellious. And it's sort of unfortunate that I'm rebellious because it should just be, in a way, an open, if anything should be, if any field in the world should be authentic, it should be therapy. It should be psychology. It should be a place where you feel totally able to say anything and not be judged, and totally comfortable being yourself. I tell my clients, come in your pajamas. I don't care. I really don't care, right? What do I care what you wear? I just want you to feel comfortable. And I'm not always, all dressed up either, We just keep it real. Like whatever we're feeling that day, whatever people want to do. If they want to get dressed up, they can. If they don't, they can come in their pajamas. It doesn't matter. Because again, it's not about what other people might think or social mores or, you know, professional expectations. It should be about, in my opinion, it should be about comfort and openness and being able to talk to somebody who knows what they're doing and is actually listening to you and is actually going to give you some feedback. And that is not the norm in my field, unfortunately. And how do I know? Well, I've been to a couple therapists in my lifetime, number one. And number two, I mean, I went to school with, you know, how many? I was taught by how many? I had I was very blessed that I had incredible professors. I mean, incredible. And incredible supervisors when I was going through my practicum and internship. I'm so lucky for that. And they always supported me and allowed me to be myself and to grow. And perhaps that's why I'm able to do that also with my clients. Because they always told me you can only take your clients where you're willing to go. So you have to, as a therapist, always keep yourself in tip-top shape and be human, because we don't know everything. We do not have all the answers, but we will help you the best way we can, and a good therapist will challenge you and sort of hold your hand and help you get through whatever it is that you're going through, whatever crisis or issue brought you to therapy. Okay, what else do I have? All my clients, all my sessions are 90 minutes to 2 hours long. The only time I ever cut them short is, people are really under financial duress and, they can't afford certain things. So I might, do a shorter session and charge a little less, but I don't normally do that. So 90-minute sessions, you're not going to find that anywhere. I mean, you just won't. It's rebellious, and it shouldn't be, but it is. So most therapists will give you about 45 to 50 minutes, and then they're going to start looking at the clock, and they're going to start looking at you, and they're going to it's a wrap, right? Let's go. Let's wrap it up here, because they have to hurry up and get the next person in. And, I do all 90-minute sessions, and sometimes people are like, oh my God, 90 minutes. How do you talk for 90 minutes? And you'd be surprised. It goes by so fast, especially when I'm working with couples and families. 90 minutes sometimes isn't even enough. And so, that's something that is very, very different. What else? My dogs work with me. That's very different. So they're all sleeping around here. But so if you've ever been my client and you're watching, you know my dogs, and they're great, and they're usually pretty good in therapy. And that's not something totally, oh, thank you, Bryden, you're so sweet. And the doggies are here, and they hang out, and, they're just there to cuddle and, do whatever it is that, you need them to do. They play, they cuddle. I think my clients a lot of times come for the dogs and not me after a while. But so I have, so I have a completely different view, I guess, on therapy in general than most therapists. So I don't think that you have to come every week. I don't tell my clients that they need to come. I let my clients decide when they want to come. I let them decide how often. If they ask me, I'm going to tell them the truth. Like, if I really think they need to come in every week because, they're in crisis or their marriage is in crisis or something like that, I will tell them. I don't tell clients that they can't come anymore either. I will just simply, let it happen naturally. And clients usually always decide on their own when they're done. Because when people really want their therapy and they're really into it, like, you wait for it all week. Like, I can't wait for my session. And then as you get healthier and healthier and healthier, you might forget that you had a session scheduled, or you might start scheduling them like every 3 weeks or once a month. I have some clients that like check in twice a year. I have clients that come, all the time, and then they don't come for 2 years, and then they come back, and it's all over the board. So I'm very liberal in that way. I don't believe that you have to go every week. I think if you can, it's wonderful. If you have the time and the money to do it, fabulous, fantastic. It's not going to hurt you, but it isn't necessary. And if there's a therapist out there that, you've ever seen or that you're seeing that's making a demand on you that, oh, well, you have to be here every week, or, I would be very suspicious. Because the truth is, you don't need to be there every week unless you really are going through a crisis, or you really have the time and the money. And again, if your insurance is paying for it or something like that, then, that's different. But I don't take insurance for a million reasons. Perhaps that makes me rebellious as well. People don't like knowing that their personal business is in the hands of insurance companies. I don't like dealing with insurance companies. Again, I'm not a lover of authority, and they definitely try to tell you as a therapist who of your clients actually needs therapy and who doesn't, and they'll limit the amount of sessions that they'll cover, and I don't want to deal with that, so I don't deal with insurance. But if people really want to come on in, and I try to make it work for everybody, but I do charge cash, credit cards, so on and so forth. But I've never taken insurance since I've been on my own. It doesn't pay us very well, and it's a lot of work, and it's a lot of headaches, and it's very limiting. So I do encourage people, even if finances are tight, if you have to pay a little bit more money for good therapy, and maybe you go once a month, once every 6 weeks, it's better than going to a crappy therapist and getting nothing out of it every week and paying nothing. So you have to really think about it as a good decision, for yourself. And sometimes the truth is you get what you pay for. So if you pay for a cheap pair of shoes and the heels fall off, don't be surprised, right? It's made in China. It's not well made. If you want to buy a good pair of shoes made in Italy, you're going to have to pay a little bit more, but they'll probably last you forever. And I think that with therapists, it's no different. So if you are out there looking, of course, I hope you would give me a try. But if you, want to go in person and you don't live in my city or whatever the situation is, be prepared to pay a little bit more to get a better product. Therapy, I never thought of it as a product, but I would say, expect that. And it's your life we're talking about. And again, if you go for a session and you don't like your therapist, don't go back. Don't waste your time. Because I think it's fair to say that everybody should walk out of their first therapy session feeling like they got something out of it. There should be some sort of connection there where you said, you know what, I think this person can be helpful to me, or I think I like the way I feel in their presence, and I like, I'm sort of really, I'm trying to think of the right word. I'm absorbing what they're saying, and it's reaching me. It's reaching me. So all of that is what makes me sort of rebellious. And I guess the final thing that makes me really such a rebel is that I will give my opinions. I actually really enjoy giving my opinions, but I know they're not always wanted. So I try to be very careful and not get into subjects that, make people uncomfortable. But if you really want to know my opinion about politics or religion, I will give it to you. But most therapists will not go there because they're too afraid of, offending you, or it might be bad for business. And these are things that, again, as any professional, you have to discover your own professional identity over time. You have to figure out what kind of therapist do I want to be? What kind of doctor do I want to be? What kind of lawyer do I want to be? What kind of teacher do I want to be? What kind of professor? I had a professor in grad school that used to come to parties with us. I thought it was awesome. But, a lot of people would say, ooh, she crossed the boundaries, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, come on, relationships, building real relationships with people are life-changing. And it's not any different in therapy. It's no different. So, of course, I'm reasonable and I can understand why we have to have certain boundaries and why boundaries are important. I mean, my God, I talk about boundaries all the time. But too many boundaries and being too rigid is not good either. And I think that my field needs to probably wake up a little bit about that and, teach up and coming students to be more of themselves and not try to push them into, oh, I'm this type of therapist, or I only do this theory or that theory, or, to really identify with theories and models. Again, if that's something that somebody chooses, that's fine. But, that never felt right to me, because that seems extreme to always do therapy one way or always do it this way. I think it's better to kind of be able to give people a little bit of everything. And every person might respond differently to different ideas or different approaches to therapy, and why, again, box yourself in. So all of those things are why and how I came up with the branding of the Rebellious Counselor, because I am pretty rebellious in my own field, and I'm kind of a person that enjoys, and I think this is a Statlander trait. I think all the Statlanders are similar on my dad's side of the family. We all like playing devil's advocate, sometimes just for fun. Not that we necessarily believe one way or the other, but we just like to look at two sides of an issue, or three or four sides of an issue, just because it helps your mind grow and expand. And it's a fun way for me, it's fun, and it makes counseling really interesting, because there's not always a right answer. There's a lot of different ways of thinking about things and looking at things. And it's so important, again, to be able to connect with a therapist that you feel comfortable doing that with them. And so, yes, those are things that are, again, maybe unfortunately very rebellious for therapists, counselors, psychologists. I definitely do things a little bit different. And again, this might be really scary to some people, and they might be watching this like, whoa, that is so, not unprofessional, or it makes me so uncomfortable that, Elizabeth, is doing things differently, and she wants to break traditions and break boundaries, and then that would definitely not be the right client for me, probably. Although I'd like to think I can take on any challenge, that the client may not feel comfortable, and so they would be better off, going to somebody else. But for people who really want an authentic connection and relationship building, then definitely the Rebellious Counselor would be the right choice for you. So before I sign off, I see I have some clients here, and they're not, no clients, some, oh my God, I'm tongue-tied tonight. Some people who are writing on Facebook, some viewers. And hello, everybody. And let me see if there's any, I love it. Let's see if there's any, okay. So thanks, Chad, for saying, I love the concept. I feel like those that are serious about changing for the better have a desire to be coached and inspired. Those that struggle with being pushed back on are not ready to move forward. It's a tough balance. I love how you manage the different aspects of therapy. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And 90, so yeah, I want to make a comment on what Chad is saying. I think he's right. I think people who would be a little bit scared off by a rebellious counselor are probably people that probably need to come to me more than anybody, because they need to learn how to be challenged and do things differently outside of the box and be okay with it. But, you know, they're going to go with what's safe. They're going to go with what's typical and safe for them, and that's okay. But yeah, they're not people that really maybe want to be pushed back or challenged, and so that's okay. Then they can just go to like a boring therapist who will be like, how's that make you feel? You know, and see how that works out for you, you know? Yes, life experiences. Okay, let me see. A friend of mine went to a therapist a few times until the old therapist laughed at my friend's circumstances and said he looks forward to the soap opera in the next session. Friend refuses to go on any therapist now. Okay, a friend went to a therapist a few times until the old therapist laughed at my friend's circumstances and said he looked forward to the soap opera in the next session. Yeah, well, so that's like in 90 minutes is so nice for people, really gives them a chance to talk. Thank you, Lisa. So, Catherine, yeah, I mean, I've heard so many crazy stories about, I get a lot of people who come in sort of traumatized, and, you know, I've heard of therapists like falling asleep on them. I've heard that a couple times. I've heard, you know, where people have gone to therapy and, you know, their therapist is looking at their cell phone the whole time or texting, which to me is insane. I'm trying to think. I don't even know. I've heard a lot of weird things, or I've had some people tell me, like, we went to a couples therapist. I've had couples tell me I went to a couples therapist, and she told us all about her husband all night. I don't remember who told me, but you know, I've heard all kinds of, you know, really crazy stories like that. And, you know, our field is, you know, subject to, you know, probably a little bit more craziness, to be quite frank, than a lot of other fields, because of the nature of what we're dealing with. So again, I think it's important that, you know, therapists stay mentally fit and constantly are working on themselves, because we have to continuously grow in order to keep up with our clients. And if we want to maintain clients over a long period of time, again, even if it's once a year or, you know, a couple of months and then not for a year, whatever, we have to keep it moving. You know, we have to keep growing and expanding and, you know, enlarging our knowledge base and keeping ourselves in tip-top shape. So a therapist should be in tip-top shape. Like, you know, you don't want to go to a trainer, a personal trainer who's, you know, fat and out of shape, right? You don't want to go to a therapist who seems completely cuckoo for Cocoa Pops. And there's a lot of them out there. You know, I hate to say it, but it's true. So, you know, my field does attract a certain type of person. And I think it attracts people who have been through a lot in their lives, been through a lot of trauma, been through a lot of ups and downs. So they're very empathetic to people, or, you know, they've maybe been helped or, you know, saved in some way by a therapist. And so they have a passion for the field, but then it overwhelms them and they get burnt out, or they're just lazy. They don't want to do the work because they're not keeping themselves in good shape. So I think that, again, don't be afraid that if you go to a therapist and you don't feel right in that office, to not go back, or, you know, continue looking. And again, I'm always around. I may not be available exactly when you want me, but, you know, I always do my best to try to get people in. And even if you want one therapeutic experience, I don't discourage that. If somebody said, hey, I just want one session, and I've had that happen before, I just want one session for, you know, help on this one thing, I think it's great. Why not? I had one guy once who went to 4 different therapists for the same issue to try and get 4 different viewpoints. I thought that was very interesting. I never heard of that before. And I was just one of the 4. But he had no intentions of, continuing with any of us. So anyway, it's really interesting. So, all right, guys, that's it for the Rebellious Counselor live this evening. And goodbye to everybody. Good night to everyone. And thank you for joining the Rebellious Counselor live. And it's still Liz, but it's not called Liz Live anymore. We're changing the brand, everybody. So now you understand why. And please share this video with friends and family if you think that they could benefit from it in some way, or if you find it interesting. And I don't have my glasses on, but somebody's saying, thank you for saying don't leave, but I'm sorry I have to go. I've been here yapping away for an hour about the Rebellious Counselor, but it's always available on the replay. And so it's on Instagram, it's on Facebook. You can watch it a million times if you want, and it'll eventually make it to YouTube when I get a chance. So thank you guys for listening tonight, and thank you so much to all of my clients who are such amazing supporters of me in every way, shape, and form. Oh my gosh, I can't say enough about the amazing clients that I have and have had that, are always, they're supporting me and giving me love. And I love all of you guys right back. And I'll see you guys Saturday morning at 11 a.m. for a second show of the Rebellious Counselor. Until then, have a great week, everyone. Thanks for watching. Bye.